With my chosen topic Melbourne street scene photography, considering the approach was important as the overall intention is to be of interest to that community. First thing I decided was to create a logo that would be of interest to street photographers. This version features black and white block letters in a checkered pattern. It will also be the font and lettering style that will be used for the topography's identity in the video. Deciding on the direction was initially quite challenging. I wanted to create a visually appealing and interesting video combining real life images as well as graphical elements. It will include video showing street scenes as well as still images depicting the photography and how much interesting information can be told in a still photograph. It was an approach that would hopefully capture the mood of the community. I wanted to represent the broad scope of street photography by showing some abstract visualizations and elements of surrealism around Melbourne City street photography. Overall, the project's intention is to create a fun narrative that could engage with and hopefully impress the community. These research images are some potential ideas that may be of influence in how the approach could be explored. They show interesting city life, symmetry of images, the mood of the images, laneways, patterns in the buildings, etc. I have photographed aspects of city life, buildings, landmarks, and have paid attention to the uniqueness of different patterns and shapes and textures within the buildings, particularly in built-up urban areas such as central city locations. Some of these images here show a range of different curves, patterns, shapes, and textures. The initial storyboard features some very basic ideas that would revolve around some patterns, shapes, symmetry of roads, activities within the buildings, etc. Some of what would be used and refined in better detail as the ideas further develop. In the refined storyboard animatic, I have decided to have some focus on shapes, patterns, symmetry, and different aspects of the building structure. This can be seen above with the pedestrian button. The basic version of the angle of the road, different shapes and patterns within the buildings standing side by side. I had also made the decision to put some focus on surrealism within the project and have an abstract feel also. There will also be some graphics, movements of logos, also multi-layered, such as the building windows acting as TV screens, showing different relevant footage to give a unique perspective. I decided on this particular black and white lettered font style, also to have some moving panels on the side to give it an interesting look. I was experimenting with a variety of different gradient techniques as possible style frame backgrounds. Using patchwork as the texture in the background I believed looked the most appropriate relating to street photography. I've duplicated the layer of the arrow in the traffic button upside down to point into the pedestrian button below, which will lead into the composition. It will look good as a moving graphic element. There are also screenshots of my footage which will be used inside the window panels to present them as if they were a TV. With these style frames, I decided black and white was the most appropriate for street photography style. Again, here we have a range of patterns and symmetry within the architecture of the buildings. These are samples selected that will represent how the finished video will work. The finished version will obviously capture more content, but these style frames should give a good indication about where the project is heading. I will talk about each one individually. The logo I created, Melbourne Street Scene Photography, will be the first frame. The intention is for the two panels to open with the logo scaling in and then cutting to the next scene. The black textured background will also move to give it an interesting effect. It will not be static. I have included this logo as well as the logo that concludes the video in this style frame presentation. The 6 other style frames will have content showing what will be in the video, but I have included these start and finish logo shots. In effect, there are 8 style frames. As discussed previously, this is the traffic light style frame with the arrow pointing into the point of interest. The arrow on the pedestrian button sign actually lifts out of the frame and bounces up and down. This is one of several ideas that will present interesting moving graphical elements to them. With the pattern panel on the far right, this is where the city composition starts. Once again, the black background pattern will be moving. I also included the same topography style of the intro so there's less negative space. There will also be some zooming ins to some of the patterns, panels, and shapes of the buildings. As mentioned, a level of things being abstract and surreal will also be a focus. This style frame will focus on easily recognizable Melbourne landmarks that will move into the frame together and act like a collage to give an interesting effect. This will take place while people are walking below, representing a busy city. These landmarks are amongst the most photographed in the city of Melbourne, and I wanted them to be represented in this one scene in the video. I have deliberately made the sky in the background a little darker to have some variation. In this style frame, the approach was again surrealism, with the busker having partial sky and black background. I will also have him emerge from the horizon to appear in the shot. This will be to add an interesting perspective on different scales. With the image, the footage will likely be video rather than just still image. This is a scene where I will likely include a graphical camera shutter closing, depicting a photograph being taken. So he will be moving and then he will pause once the shutter closes to indicate a photograph has been taken. He is a street musical performer and it represents an interesting thing that can be photographed as part of street photography as a whole. With the collage of the buildings, this will zoom into the next scene, which will be the window patterns. Here I was going for something unique by adjusting the scale and the different sizes of the buildings in relation to each other. I've also tried to focus on some interesting patterns and shapes. It will focus on the patterns of the glass as it zooms in. Again, it will pause towards the end of the zooming in to represent the photographs being taken. This is to emphasize that there are all sorts of things that can be photographed and also in different ways. This will be one of the more interesting scenes in the finished project. Again, it will zoom in towards the city building and pause on the building windows. We will see activity going on inside the windows as we can see here. It is almost like a surreal representations of the windows acting as TV screens. The images you see there will be live scenes of actual video showing busy city life. As with some of the previous scenes, I will likely have the video image pause into a still shot, again representing a photograph being taken. Again, this shows the many different and interesting photographic possibilities that exist in city life. Photographing unique street scenes can be a very interesting experience and I will intend to show this. The final style frame shows a panel closing over the logo sign representing the video has concluded. So far I have given an overview of some key components that will appear in the video that are represented by the style frames. Obviously what will be included and the overall scope of the final video will go into much more detail and cover more interesting subject matter. But I hope the style frames have given a flavour of the direction that the project will take. I believe I have mapped out all the contents and I know from a technical standpoint that this isn't with my ability to deliver. As some of the ideas that I will include have expanded in recent weeks, I know I will need to do another day or two of shooting some videos as well as some still photographs that will best capture the ideas. I have done several video and photography shoots for this project, but I feel I will need to do a couple more to capture exactly what I need, as I feel the style frames are not 100% resolved. Once the video and photographs are complete from the production stages, I can then import and work in the post-production stage. I have frames and some video that I will already use. I just need to fill in a couple of blanks in order to put the entire piece together. I intend to have a rough completed version by early to mid-October. That will give me several more weeks to refine the whole project as best as I can. It will be a very interesting exercise.